What's up, YouTube? You checking out the Frequent Flyer, and this is my quick review of the Cheerson CX-33 tricopter. And this is the craft here, and yes, it is a tricopter and not a hexacopter, although it does have 6 motors and 6 props. I think the naming goes by the number of arms on it, and this has 3 arms, so it's a tricopter, not a hexacopter. And this is a really awesome looking aircraft. The design is really nice. I'm really fond of the way that it looks. And right off, I just want to say there's a few things that I really don't like about it. It's not bad at all. This thing is really awesome, but it's just 3 things. I think it's 3 things. Well, let me just go through them. The first thing that I don't like about this aircraft is that the LVC. Now, the LVC, you might as well say it's non-existent. Although the rear light does start to flash when it hits LVC. But the thing is that as soon as it hits LVC, it starts to auto land. So this aircraft just, when it reaches low voltage warning, it just starts to automatically descend. No matter where you are, it just descends. So that can be a problem, especially if you're flying it far away from yourself, or you're flying it over somewhere in particular that you don't want to land it, and LVC kicks in and it just starts to auto land. It descends kind of slow, but it's not slow enough for you to get it back to you. You can run into trouble like that. I know I did. I was flying it out back, and I flew it over the gate, and LVC kicked in, and it just started lowering, and I couldn't make it back over the gate. So that's a huge problem. That's a negative. I think it shouldn't do that. The LVC warning should be better. It should give you time to fly it back to yourself, and then when it starts reaching the point where it actually loses power, that's when it should just descend. So I think that's a mistake in design on their part. The other thing is the auto landing. This thing has a barometer to let you guys know. It has a barometer in it, so it has altitude hold. It holds its height when you're flying it. On the transmitter, it's actually self-centering on the throttle stick side. So the throttle stick stays in the middle because this thing, wherever you leave it or let off the throttle stick, it'll stay in that position. And the barometer helps it sense its height, and it through air pressure, and it'll just stay there. For the most part, it does it really well. It's not perfect. It does drift around a little because there's no GPS in here. But for the most part, it holds its height and does it well. Now, when you lower it and you come to a landing, when you keep holding down the throttle stick and you land it, it actually cuts off quick. It's done well that way. However, with this one key landing, when you hit that, it'll come down and sort of bounce around for a little while before the motors shut off, because the motors don't shut off immediately after it touches down. So that I found that to be a problem, because the landing gear on here is kind of bouncy. It's not really that stiff, not that firm, especially if you land it off towards the back end. And I found that when I press that auto landing button, when it touches down, it's bouncing around, and the motors are still spinning, the props are still spinning. And so I'm always afraid that the motor, it's going to tip over, or the motors, it's going to bounce into something where it's going to hit the props and damage the props. So that's the other thing I don't like about it. When it lands, on the auto land feature, the motors don't shut as soon as it touches down. So I would recommend, if you get this, when you land it, to hold down to descend, and then once it gets to the ground, you keep holding down, and it'll turn off fairly quickly, probably maybe about 2 seconds after you land after it touched down and you're still holding down on the throttle stick, the motors are shut. So that's the way I recommend landing it. That's the other thing that I didn't like about it. Let me see, was there something else? Oh, the rates button. I don't think there's rates on here. You can't switch rates. So I guess it's a combination of the rates and the yaw. But the yaw, it's not a bad yaw, don't get me wrong. It's a nice yaw. But you really can't do any stunt flying with it, as far as it doesn't flip over or anything like that. So you really can't. The only thing left is maybe funnels, tight funnels. You can do funnels with it, nice funnels, but you can't do tight funnels with it. And you can't get a real extreme pitch to fly it faster. That's just me, though. It might just be me because I like to fly really fast and all that and do a lot of quick turns and maneuvering. So that's another thing that I would like to have seen for this thing to have switchable rates. And I have yet to find that in the instructions manual or find it by playing around with things. This transmitter here. So for the most part, no switchable rates. Now, that's it. Other than that, this thing is really awesome. I do recommend this. It's an awesome aircraft. It flies really well. The pitch is not very deep, extremely deep, but the pitch is deep enough to fly this thing fast. You can fly it fast. The yaw is nice enough to make turns when you need. You can get around outdoors with it. But you can do funnels, and it'll be nice funnels, but you can't do really tight funnels, the type of funnels that I'm used to. But you can do funnels with it, and they're nice. This thing is very stable. I think this is meant to be a video recording platform, and it does it very well. There's hardly any vibration from it, so hardly any jello or anything in the video footage that I've tested. Although it might be a little sensitive to the light exposure and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's a really nice camera platform. I imagine I have the 1 megapixel C version. There's another version, I think, FPV version. I'm not sure if the FPV version has a better megapixel count or if it's a better lens or whatnot, but the lens on this one isn't bad. But it's just low on megapixel count, and it might have that problem with sensing light, the exposure or whatnot. In my testing anyway, it seems to get light and dark depending on the lighting or whatever, hitting angles on it. And it seems like when you face more towards the sky, it seems to darken up to try to not, I think the lens closes, well, the shutter closes a little to try to not let too much light in. But anyway, it flies really stable. It holds a really nice hover, and I think this will be great for beginners as far as them being able to fly it, because it makes you have to worry less about the throttle because it stays in the air. You're not going to worry about it hitting the ground at all, just about, because it holds its height and you have to bring it down to the ground. But I wouldn't recommend this to a beginner because of the fact that I think it's very important for you to learn throttle management. That's one of the key things that you need to have down in order to fly these aircraft. And this one, I guess it will be cheating, and it will probably rob you of actually learning how to have good throttle management and fly the rest of the aircraft, the other multi-rotors around. So I wouldn't recommend this for beginners if you don't have good throttle management. But if you do have your throttle management down, this would be a really nice aircraft to get. Very easy to fly, worry-free video recording, it seems, because like I said, you don't have to worry about the throttle stick. So great videography platform as a multi-rotor. And this thing is very stable on turns and flying fast. I just was surprised it's more stable than the other tricopters that I have. This thing flies really nice. I really like the way it flies. And It has nice LEDs. The orientation aspect is, they got that covered. Night flying, this thing is a great night flyer. Excellent at night because the LEDs are really bright. It has blue in the front and red in the back. And the fact that it's a tricopter and you have 2 lights up front and 1 red in the back makes it very easy to tell, keep your orientation down. So excellent night flyer this thing is. But this thing is very loud. I found that it's very loud. But that's not really much of a factor because you're going to be flying this outdoor. This is an outdoor aircraft. It does come with prop guards, but for the most part, I think it should be flown outdoors, and that's what it's intended to be, flown as an outdoor aircraft. And it does have an on and off switch. The battery bay, it has a proprietary battery. The battery is unique just to this, being that it has, well, I have it on the balance charger, but it seems to be done charging. Here it has a balance plug there, but here it has a micro low C connector. So, and it's 7.4 volts, a 360 milliamp hour battery. And so that's really uncommon to have a 7.4 volt battery with a micro low C connector on there. Usually it's a JST connector on the end, on the plug. But the DM007 has that same micro low C connector, so you can put these in here and fly it. This is a battery from the DM007. It's a 380 milliamp hour battery, different shape of course, but it does, you can squeeze it in there. It bulges out a little bit, but for the most part it can be flown with this, and you actually get about it's comparable flight time to this, about almost the same, just about the same. I want to say it's the same. It bulges out a little tiny bit, but for the most part, it fits in there. So if you have DM007 batteries, you can get away with flying this with those. The transmitter is really nice. It's a hobby style transmitter. Looks like the Cheerson CX-33's transmitter. Only thing different is that this actually self-centers, and you can switch from mode 1 to mode 2 here. The default is mode 2, but if you hold this button down and turn on the transmitter, it swaps the throttle and yaw management over to your right side, and your left stick would still would fly forward and aileron. And so these buttons here, I don't think do anything because I've pressed them. They don't do anything. In the instructions manual, it don't say these do anything. So these are not the rate buttons, in case you were thinking that. This is the auto takeoff. Now, this has an auto takeoff feature, which works pretty well. But you do need space with it, with this aircraft, because it doesn't have GPS. So it does drift around a little. So when you hit the auto takeoff, it'll go up in the air and hold its position at about 2 feet, I want to say. Maybe 2 or 3 feet. And it does drift around when it auto take off. So be mindful of that when you press that, when you want to use that function. It'll just, the motors will spin up and then it'll pop up in the air, and sometimes it drifts backwards or to the side a little. It doesn't stay put exactly like that in position, but it does hold the height. You can take off a different way. You can hold both sticks to the lower outside corners, and that arms the motors, and then you can go up when you want to go up, when you want to take off. So that's a good way to take off as well. I think the best way to land again is to hold the throttle stick down and descend until it touches down, and then it'll turn off maybe 2 seconds later. So that's pretty cool. And I think that's about it with as far as the transmitter and the controls of this thing. It takes 4 AA batteries, and yeah, the protocol, this actually uses the Cheerson CX-10 Blueboard protocol, and I was able to bind this to the Devo, but and you start the motor, arm the motors the same way. However, you know, the Devo stick throttle stick doesn't self-center, so but it works well though. You'll have it down like this, and the motors will still be spinning, and it doesn't take off actually until you pass half throttle. So I guess you can probably program the Devo to work with it a little different as or whatnot, but as of now, just having it set up to fly the Cheerson CX-10 Blue board, when it only take off when you get past 0.5% throttle, 50% throttle, and yeah, you can change the rates on it and get it to pitch a little deeper. It seems like it flies a little faster. The yaw rate might be a little faster, or it might be the same, but it's not extremely fast. But you can do nice funnels with it. With the Devo, it pitches deeper, so the funnels look a little better. And yeah, that's about it with this thing. It's a really awesome flyer. I would recommend it. Definitely, it's an awesome flying aircraft. It banks well. It has nice pitch on it, a nice yaw rate, and oh, it does feel a little awkward getting used to this stick here self-centering, and it seems like makes it a little harder to bring the aircraft down when you're flying fast. But for the most part, it works. Really nice flyer, the Cheerson CX-33. Thanks for watching.